I think going into Wednesday night's game and the start of this season, for Pistons fans, for Bulls fans, both sides, this represents one of the most eagerly anticipated seasons in quite some time. When you look at it from a Pistons standpoint, we anticipate they're not going to be a good team this year, even though it was hard to tell that a little bit on Wednesday night. But them being able to win the draft lottery, get a guy like Cade Cunningham, represents hope for the future. The hope for a real dynamic, franchise-elevating type of guy. Those types of guys don't come around every year in the draft. Cade Cunningham has that potential to be one of them. So when you're a Detroit Pistons fan sitting there and saying, okay, this team might stink right now, but they could be pretty good pretty quickly. How good? That's determined in the future. But you have something to be excited about, something to latch onto, some reason for hope that you haven't had in a long time. Meanwhile, for the Bulls, is easily the most anxiously anticipated season in at least a decade, going back to the Derrick Rose days when he was peak Derrick Rose, MVP level Derrick Rose. You look at this team and the moves they made in the offseason, the acquisition of DeMar DeRozan, bringing in Alex Caruso, so on and so forth. Like, there's Lonzo Ball. There's big reason for excitement in Chicago that, hey, Eversley and AK put in some work and they remade this team. The Balzac era is beginning in Chicago. Yeah. And I think the championship aspirations are a little loony right now. But when you're a Bulls fan, you've seen a lot of crappy Gar-Pax basketball over the years, you might get pretty excited about this team being a 4 or 5 seed. That could potentially cause a little bit of noise in the playoffs. That would seem like significant progress for sure. So both organizations, both teams, both fan bases certainly have reasons to be excited about this 2021-2022 season. For me, I was personally bummed out Wednesday night because Cade Cunningham wasn't going to be in the lineup due to the ankle injury. That sucks. Like, I wanted to see the young man play. I wanted to see the Bulls go up against him. I want to see, Cade Cunningham versus Zach LaVine or, Cade Cunningham versus DeMar DeRozan. I want to see that type of matchup. I don't want to beat teams when they're at less than their best. I'm sorry, I don't. That doesn't make for champions. It's not the Bulls' fault. They can't help that Cade didn't play him, but you get what I'm saying. Like, you want to beat a team at their absolute best whenever possible. And you want to see a young talent like Cade Cunningham because it adds an extra energy level to a game. It adds an extra buzz to the game. But even without the guy that's presumed to be, the top option from day one for the Pistons, I give them a lot of credit on Wednesday night because they had a tremendous amount of fight and effort. They scrapped and scratched and clawed and fought like hell and made life really miserable for the Bulls. The Bulls could have lost this game. You might argue, based off of the first 3 quarters, it felt like the Bulls maybe should lose this game, which that would have sent the Bulls fan base into an absolute dizzying tailspin. But that didn't happen. But what the Pistons did, they forced 17 Chicago Bulls turnovers. Sure, a few of those for Chicago were self-induced with sloppy play, and you expect that at the beginning of the season. But the Pistons applied pressure. They played well defensively at times, held Chicago to under 44% from the field, 30% from 3, only 40 points allowed in the first half, and even the whole game only giving up 94. Vucevic was only 7 of 21 from the field. Yes, he had the double-double in the first half and finished with 15 points and 50 rebounds, but he wasn't exactly dynamic or dominant. And some of that you could say, hey, the Bulls missed quite a number of easy shots and open shots, and that is absolutely true. You could certainly look at this game, especially in the fourth quarter, and it's like, damn, if the Bulls hit some damn open shots, they could have won this game by 20. That's true, but they didn't. But the Pistons kept hanging around, so I want to make sure I took time to give them credit. Now, from a Bulls and Bulls fans' perspective, to me, with the first half at least, which was a bit of a struggle, probably a little concerning, but also remembering it's the first half of the first game of the year, you can see some obvious things. Defensively, Lonzo Ball and Alex Caruso made a huge difference in terms of this team's perimeter defense. Their ability to man up multiple positions, their feel and instincts for rotating on defense, playing the passing lanes, it was different. This team looked vastly different on the defensive side of the ball compared to even just a season ago. Their energy was great. The team fed off of that. It was wonderful. Now, offensively, it was a bit rough. It was. And so Vooch didn't have a great game. DeMar DeRozan was good, but he wasn't great. LaVine was efficient all night, great in the second half. But you can see that it's going to take time for these guys to figure out how to work together, how their offenses and how their games could flow off of one another. And I expected that. Like, that chemistry is not going to come overnight. And on a night where their chemistry wasn't great, or one of the big three had a pretty piss-poor shooting night in general, the Bulls still found a way to get it done. And I think that a lot has to do with what happened come the second half. Like, a lot of fans are going to talk about Zach LaVine, and some media are going to talk about Zach LaVine and the 11 to 17 from the field, the 34 points. That's going to get the attention. Like, he took over in the second half, and he was great, and he's this highly efficient shooter, blah, blah, blah. I want to look at other things that give him a lot of credit for Wednesday night, because he actually played like he gave somewhat of a shit on defense, which is not something I always say about him in previous seasons. Like, he was even making some nice defensive plays. He wasn't quite the revolving door that I've expected to see out of him in the past. There was more effort there, and maybe that's because of guys like Lonzo and guys like Caruso, Ayo, like that defensive energy, Patrick Williams, like that feeds off onto him. But he looked like he gave a shit, looked like he'd improved a little bit. That's encouraging. What I really liked most about his game was offensively, he recognized as the top dog of this team, like Michael Jordan used to talk about, his role was as a utility player. And having to understand that on a given night, the team might need him to be a facilitator. Other nights it might need him to primarily be a defender and a rebounder. Sometimes it might be to be a guy that takes 30 shots. Some nights it might be you need him to do every goddamn thing. LaVine recognized coming out of halftime that this team needed him to give him an offensive boost. And he certainly did. But he did that without having to kind of play that isolationist Zach ball that we might have been seeing the past couple of years. What I saw was a guy that was able to get his points, be aggressive within the scheme, within the flow of the offense. And that's a much different feeling. And frankly, while maybe a slightly less spectacular Zach LaVine, as when he is hot, man, he is absolutely spectacular. But when he's not, That said, the way that he played here, I think he actually is more spectacular, more dangerous, because of the fact he doesn't have to slow down and shut down the rest of the team in order to get his, which previous seasons I wouldn't necessarily been able to say. What else stood out to me? The young man, Ayo Dosunmu. He got some action. He only got 11 minutes in this first game, but it was some critical minutes, and I thought he flashed well. If he can learn to hit some open shots, like it's going to only increase his importance to this team. He's another wing defender with length and versatility and effort and hustle and energy level. Even the energy level when he went for the one layup in the fourth quarter and he got his shit rocked. My concern, though, with Ayo is he going to ride the bench when Kobe's healthy? He can't. Like, you could look at this team on Wednesday night and say the Bulls do need some scoring punch off the bench because they only had 10 points off the bench. And maybe Kobe's a guy they point to and look at and say he's a guy that can do that. I don't know about all that. I'm sorry. I saw the positives that Ayo brought to the table, and Kobe White should have been traded by now. I'm sorry, guys. You just got to admit it. Like, come on. Maybe I'll be proven wrong as the season goes along, and he'll find a great role for this team as a sixth man. And that is the one shot he has, is to be that sixth man that can provide some much-needed offensive scoring power off the bench. Because this team does need it, and you could see it. A little concerned about the depth in the front court overall, although I thought Johnson had really good energy level and played some nice minutes on Wednesday night. But you kind of look at him and you go, okay, what happens if somebody gets hurt? You don't want to think like that, but, it's a long season. Guys are going to get hurt. And when they do, who's going to be next man up? Who's going to take over? The other big thing I noticed was I didn't even know Patrick Williams was playing last night. Like, I knew he was playing, and I saw him. But there was no presence. There was no real impact. 2 for 3 for 6 points. I mean, he's solid defensively and all that. I'm not trying to hate on the young man, but I worry a little bit, like, is he really going to get the chance to fully develop like he needs to, or this team needs him to, with Zach and Vooch and DeMar? He is at best the fourth option on this team. And he might be the fifth behind Lonzo. So where are Patrick Williams' shots going to be? And for a guy that you took fourth overall, you're putting him in a position where he's just basically going to be at best a high-end role player And are you better off packaging him and Kobe in a deal to get another bigger name to really get nuts and go after it? Like, even when you look at the winning time lineup late in the game, you know, you obviously have Caruso in there, Alonzo in there. Who wasn't in there for a good portion of it? Patrick Williams. That was telling to me. Like, I could point to maybe it was a little bit of a mistake because, you know, Vooch wasn't having a great night offensively, and he's always a bit of a liability defensively. Maybe you should have been playing some Patrick at the 5 there. But yeah, like, that'll be something to watch to me as we go throughout the season is what's Patrick Williams' role going to be? Because the way this team is constructed right now, you could see that LaVine's probably going to have an all-star-ish level season. Vooch or DeMar will take a bit of a step back, you know, statistically. It's just the way the team is constructed. But this team only goes as far, I think, ultimately, as Patrick Williams develops. And based off of what I saw on Wednesday night, concerns are abound. But when you look at this game overall for the Chicago Bulls, a 94-88 victory, if you're a Bulls fan, you got to feel good. It's the first time they've won an opening game, I believe, in 5 years. They've got a chance Friday night, home opener at the United Center against the New Orleans Pelicans, to go to 2-0. You feel good about this game, though, in the sense of you saw some really good things, and even some of the bad things didn't matter as much. You don't like the fact that they played a bad Pistons team as close as they did, and it was so in doubt late. But you love the fact that a game, for all intents and purposes, they should have lost, they found a way to win. That's what good teams do. And the Bulls, to me, with their overall performance on Wednesday night, they showed me that they might not be a great team yet, but they are certainly positioned to be a pretty damn good one.